should we eat broccoli every day? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Probiotics are an easy solution, but not always the best ones.
And the mantra that I want to really get in people's minds is variety of plants.
Hi, I'm Sarah Nicole Edwards. I'm a health coach and I'm the founder of Copper and Cloves, the cafe and meal subscription service in Bangalore that's on a mission to help you fall in love with wholesome plant-based food. Welcome to the Nourish podcast, where we explore the art of nourishing yourself. Nourishment goes beyond just the food we eat. It encompasses movement, meditation, connection, community, and laughter. And that is what this podcast is all about. Each week, we'll dive deep into a topic and interview an expert guest with the ultimate aim of helping you to feel truly nourished.
So Sakshi, I'm going to just briefly introduce Sakshi, that she's an amazing person that I met a few months ago.
So I just finished my master's in marketing from Imperial. I was doing a course in strategic marketing. It was for a year in London. It was the best time of my life.
And then she came back and she reached out to me to support me to try to reach more people with my messages. And yeah.
So funny story, right? Like, one of my friends who just shifted to Bangalore reached out to me and she was like, check out this cafe called Copper and Cloves and it has the best banana bread ever. And it coming from her was a huge deal because she's obsessed with banana bread. So I had to come check her cafe out and I absolutely fell in love with the music, the ambience, the vibes, the people. Stalked her on Instagram. And then I saw her website and I thought like everything she was doing was so cool. So I shot her an email, which I did not think I would get a reply to.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, hey, I'm Sakshi. This is what I've been doing. And I love marketing and I love brands and I love connecting brands with their community. And I thought there was so much to do with Copper and Cloves that I was like, everybody in the world should know that this cafe exists. And that's why I reached out to her. And that's when we met and we started talking about how we can connect with the right people.
Yeah, and that's when I was kind of telling Sakshi that, yes, of course, I want help marketing my cafe, but actually I have these ideas and these messages that I know, when you're talking to someone and about something and they're like asking you lots of questions and it's useful, but then like I'm at the cafe or I'm at a party and I don't have time to kind of like go in depth. And that's when I said to her, like, actually what I want more help with is getting these messages which I have and like this information which I have out there in a way that will reach the most people here in India and help people. Right. And like the community, I know when people come to the cafe, they're always asking the same things and they have the same questions. And I wanted to therefore reach more people with these kind of messages.
Here we are.
Episode 1. All about gut health, and Sakshi's going to ask me all the questions that she had because the questions she had are the same questions that other people had, and we're going to structure it as more of a long-form conversation, and I'm just so happy you're here. Okay, so our first episode is going to be about gut health. I really feel that when people are talking about nutrition and health, they have a lot of, often the focus of the conversation is about weight loss, it's about protein, it's about calories. And really gut health is like the underpinning of all of these things. And I feel that it's not really talked about. And if it is, it's really reductionist. So that's why I'm very excited to be having a long form conversation all about gut health.
Yeah, it's actually so interesting that you say that because I was diagnosed with PCOD around 4 years back. And I had all the symptoms of it since forever. Like I cannot remember a time when I didn't have it.
Really?
So the weight gain, the acne, hair loss, all of it, right? And I was thinking that it was like a skin problem and I was going to all these dermats and they didn't have a solution for me for the longest time. And I finally came in contact with the gynec that I still see today. And she was the one who suggested that I go for an ultrasound and like see what's actually happening on the inside.
Yeah.
And cure the problem from the roots that it actually shows
so
physically.
Good you found someone that has that approach.
I love her. She changed my life. But there were a lot of difficulties though, right? Because when I was finally diagnosed with it, a lot of feedback that I got was how I should cleanse the gut and like
Yeah.
focus on gut
Yeah.
health, but I had no idea how to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um,
And so there wasn't like actionable steps that you were given on like how to improve your gut health.
yeah, not at all. I was like literally Googling and
Yeah.
not finding answers.
Yeah.
And that's why our conversation the other day in the cafe was so informational.
Yeah,
for me.
yeah. So that's so amazing because actually that is what I often hear. And I think there's a lot of myths out there. Like we
Yeah.
talked about this the other day, like the myths around like, okay, I need to focus on my gut health. I need to take a probiotic because often the first time people are even introduced to the idea of what is gut health is when they see an advert our marketer do about a
Yeah.
probiotic. Don't get me wrong, like we will go into probiotics in this conversation. It's not necessarily, I'm not saying I'm against them, but it is like a tiny piece of the overall puzzle of
Yeah.
gut health. So I mean, first we have to define, right? Like what is gut health?
Right.
Basically, our gut health is affected by many, many things. And what we mean when we're talking about healthy gut
Yeah.
is a wide variety of microbes, like bacteria, viruses, fungi that are living inside of our body,
Yeah.
stomach and intestines. And they're like a thriving community. And we want to do more things that help us have more of them. And we want to do more things that give us greater diversity of the different types of
Yeah.
microbes. So we'll keep referring to microbes and we mean bacteria. And in that sense, like we'll be talking about different actionable tips that will help us
Right.
to increase that.
So, like, how do we really start this journey to
Yeah.
better health, right? Because obviously, like you said, probiotics are an easy solution, but
Yeah.
not always the best ones, right?
It's a very limited part
Yeah.
of the solution. Like I'm not. It's like supplementation in general. It's really not for me to say you should or shouldn't take supplements.
Yeah.
But what I can say is if that's your only idea, you don't have enough tools in your box yet.
Yeah.
Obviously, I guess it's probably not going to come as a surprise that the key step is overall looking at what you eat. And the mantra that I want to, really get in people's minds is variety of plants. So I guess the first thing I kind of want to say is, okay, I am plant-based and I have a plant-based business, but I am not starting this podcast to convert people or to make a plug for going completely plant-based. I do believe it's a wonderful way to eat and it's really it's been an amazing journey for me personally. Having said that, I do have a very strong position that everybody should eat more plants.
Yeah.
Whatever you categorize yourself as non-veg, vegetarian, or plant-based, vegan, everyone in all three of those categories needs to eat a wider variety of plants for their gut health
Yeah.
and for their overall health. So when we mean variety of plants, we literally mean more different types of grain.
Right.
Could be a good place to start, right? We live in South India. Rice and grains are like a big part of our diets. But what typically happens is in a household, we might only be eating white rice,
Yeah.
right? But actually, brown rice one day, red rice the next day, millet of one type like bajra one day, and then foxtail millet,
Yeah.
quinoa, like all of these are different types of grain. So often people will ask me like, what's the healthiest grain? Shouldn't I only have millets? I've heard
Yeah.
millets are really, really healthy. Like, and there has been a big health campaign around millets. Yes, millets are healthy. Oh, great. So I should just have millets. I shouldn't even have any rice, even red rice. I shouldn't have it, right? I'm like, no. The whole point is like, if millet is healthy, that's great. If red rice is also healthy, like I would encourage whole grains, right? Like definitely whole grains over processed grains because there is more fiber and
Yeah.
nutrients contained within a whole grain. a white rice means it isn't a different species. It's actually one of the other types of rice with all of the bran and fiber and nutrient content removed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's no place for white rice, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's so refreshing that you say that, because a lot of health coaches and like nutritionists are very focused on like meal prepping and like having the same kind of food throughout. And
Yes.
I think that's so boring because I want to have that variety. And so nice to hear you say that.
really see this. Like, I've seen on Instagram a lot, like meal prep for your week, and it's like brown rice, some like vegetable thing, and then a source of protein.
Yeah.
You can make it for the whole week, and you can like stack it in your fridge, and they show these like photos of like the same meal every day, and it's like it's perfectly balanced macros. It's like macros is not the be all and end all of health, and focusing on like, oh, I need to balance my carbs, fat, and protein is such a reductionist way of thinking about our health and what we actually need.
Yeah.
We are humans. We are really complex in our bodies. It's not as simple as balancing macros.
Yes.
And that is often a reductionist thing, which is looking purely at short-term weight loss and not at overall long-term sustainable health.
Yeah.
And I feel that, variety of grain is such a simple, great way, like actionable step. Like rather than focusing on one type of grain, focus on lots. I do believe that whole grains are a good place to start. Then we can also think about pulses and dals. Again, dal is a big part of our diets in here in South India. And again, so many questions like, oh, this type of dal, this is the healthiest type. This is the one that you should make your dosa, and this is the one you should... Actually, again, it may be that some have different nutrient profiles than others. It may be that some dals suit you more than others.
Yeah.
But reducing it to saying this is the healthiest one and I should have it every day is again like super reductionist.
Yeah.
And that's something that we want to avoid. So our gut bacteria, microbes, all the different things living there, we want more of them, and they eat different things. Mm-hmm. So for diversity, we need to feed them different things.
Yeah.
And so again, one way of thinking about your week when you're planning it is, okay, I had like chana yesterday, so today I might have like a red masoor dal, and then another day I might have urad dal. Like if dal is a regular part of my meal, how can I mix it up and give variety? And even at Copper and Cloves, like we do a range of salads. Like we have all different types of salads. Almost all of them do have some kind of dal in them, because I believe that salads should not be lettuce. They should be satisfying and filling. Obviously, we cook them so that they still hold their shape. Mm-hmm. And each one, like we have a mung dal salad, we have salad with chana, we have salad with cowpeas. So that's another thing that you can think about when you think about variety.
Yeah.
And on top of that, obviously, we have all the leaves, all the fruits, all the vegetables. It's not about saying like, again, broccoli it's like high in protein for a vegetable and fiber, and it's full of nutrients. Broccoli is amazing. Should we eat broccoli every day? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Broccoli one day, cabbage the next day, like beetroot the next day. All of these things are feeding our gut and making them thrive.
Yeah.
They want different types of fiber, right? And fiber is found, like one type of fiber is in different grains. Another type of fiber might be in different, pulses, and other types of fiber are found literally in different vegetables.
Yeah.
So this is something that we really want to focus on.
Yeah, and I think like being vegetarian all these years, not vegan yet, but that's the goal. I have seen a lot of, first of all, every time we go to a restaurant, all my friends are like, you don't have enough options, and like, how are you getting your protein intake?
Yeah.
And I think in our previous conversation back in the cafe, you mentioned something really cool, which was how our body actually synthesizes protein on its own.
Yeah.
I would love to hear more about that.
Yes, that's such a good point. Like, this is one of the things which always come up when people are talking about like the problems with the vegan diet, which people love to talk about. And they talk about, like, where would you get your protein from? So the truth is, if you eat a wide variety of different plants, like there are certain, like people basically talk a lot about the essential amino acids. They're the ones that our body doesn't make themselves, and we have to ingest them
Right.
in order for them to be able to make the protein. And what people say is like a lot of animal products are complete. They contain those 9 all in one. But you can also get them by eating different types of plants which contain those amino acids in combination with each other. But again, rather than focusing on, I need to eat exactly this and exactly that, if you generally eat a wide variety, so whatever, we've talked about so far, variety of different grains, whole grains, pulses, sources of typical sources of vegan protein like soybeans in the form of tofu, say, plus different vegetables. Your body can like take the amino acids from those different sources and still use them to build protein in exactly the same way as if you had eaten it all in the form of the animal product which had it in one. So that's why that argument about like, vegans can't get enough protein, and it's certainly something that, look, if you are on a plant-based diet, the same thing applies if you want to eat healthily. If you want to get enough protein on a plant-based diet, if you want to generally eat for gut health on a plant-based diet, on a vegetarian diet, or indeed on a non-veg diet, you just need to do the same thing, which is eat a wide variety of foods, different things on different days. Try to cover the full spectrum. Don't cut out whole food groups. Don't eat, heavily processed food where half of the, the fiber or the protein content has been taken out because it's so refined. Like, it's the same advice. And it's actually the most simple advice. Don't eat the same exact thing every day. Don't eat things that are only come from a packet. So people think gut health is something different. People think that vegans getting enough protein is something different. It's some like
out of the box.
Yeah, but actually it's the same advice applies. And I just feel, we talked about this the other day, like you can suck the joy out of eating so easily by just like, I need to measure this percent and I need to make sure I get enough protein. And even though it doesn't suit my body, I have to eat this. Like the beauty of the advice of like a wide variety of food is that it's not that you have to eat every single type of food every week. You can still have preferences. You can still mix it up week to week. I'm not talking about looking at like one meal and being like, I need to like tick off all of these things. The advice is so much more simple. It's like, it's a general rule, like eat a wide variety of plants, aim to like buy different things when you're at the grocery store, for example. Like if you had this and you just finished your like, your white chana, like maybe the next time buy brown and see how, cooking with that, or like try black rice or try a different type of millet, or, try a vegetable that you never normally pick up. Like it's like easy advice, and it's quite fun and joyful compared to measuring things and cutting things out and counting calories and like logging things on your phone, which generally is not, from a nutrition perspective, when I'm coaching people, I follow what is called an anti-diet approach. So it's not about dictating to people what to eat. General advice is eat more things. It's not like, okay, I'm going to write exactly what you should eat. And so I do feel like when you were given that advice, right? Like, did anyone mention to you about like maybe you should try eating like a wider variety of foods? Or was that something that you found out about?
I think the first time I heard that was something you should do was from you in our conversation.
Interesting.
And I think thinking about it also, like the concept of this eating variety of food, I think you incorporated it so beautifully in all the salads and bowls available at Coffin Club, because every time I eat there, I just feel more energetic and I feel like I can go out and conquer the world, because it's like good food. It looks good. It's so many colors, and
Yeah.
What do you feel about like the variety of colors in a
Yeah,
bowl as well?
that was the other thing that we talked about in terms of like making the food. The food is colorful at Copper and
Yeah.
Close for a reason, because I think you commented on it, and I
Yeah.
think I'm glad you brought that up. That's the other way to think about variety. So we've talked more about grains and pulses so far.
Yeah.
But the other key part of variety is color. So vegetables and fruits, they naturally have, right, like color in the skin, pigment in the skin, and within the flesh. And those things we think about in terms of like what they look like. And again, the good thing is that you don't need to learn like all of the different, vitamin this, vitamin that, this type of fiber is in this fruit. And therefore, again, just try to eat as many different colors of vegetables and
Yeah.
fruits over the course of a day, week, month, so that you don't have to like be so aware of, have I got enough of this or that? The whole point is, so there's this phrase, eat the rainbow. That's the second kind of mantra that I wanted to introduce,
Yeah.
like the idea of like something that you could keep just repeating to yourself as a general positive guidance. Again, we're not talking about restricting anything. I hear people saying like, mangoes, aren't they too sweet? They're so bad for you. Okay, listen, if you're eating 12 mangoes a day, maybe there's a possibility that there's too much sugar, that it will give you an upset stomach.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of goes without saying.
Yeah.
But eating more mangoes in mango season and then eating other fruits when those things are in season is part of like a broader spectrum of variety.
Right.
And the idea is like eating seasonally and eating a wide variety of colors. So, for example, let's take fruits, because we just started talking about that. We have different smoothie bowls at Copper and
Yeah,
Close that
I
look
love
really
those.
good together.
Yes.
Like we have a strawberry one, which also has banana in it. We have the mango one, which also has pineapple and papaya. We have like our cacao one, which is more like banana. Then we have one which is like loads of dragon
Yeah.
fruit. And the idea is that, that variety, all of those things are different colors. And the colors represent different nutrients and different properties.
Right.
So rather than focusing on different nutrients that you have to, I haven't had enough vitamin this, you can just think about it as kind of a rainbow. Like, have I already had a lot of like mango this week?
Right.
Okay, maybe I'll think about like, what is a red fruit I could have? Have I had a lot of things like, you can think about variety of texture as well, because that often indicates different types of fiber.
Yeah.
So like an apple is a very different texture than say a mango or a papaya, and pineapple is again a really different texture. So you can think in more simple terms about like how I could be eating different things which are different colors and different textures to give me that broader variety of the types of fiber which will nourish my gut and the type of nutrients which my gut needs to in turn give me more nutrients. And when it's actually something which I've often worked with my clients with their own children, like we literally have a little Eat the Rainbow chart where you can get your kid interested in it. Like, okay, what colors did I eat today on a Monday? So what colors can I eat which I didn't eat yesterday on a Tuesday?
Yeah.
And then as it gets later into the week, you can even like involve your kids. Like, what vegetable do we need to cook today to like hit the rainbow?
Yeah.
So it's really a positive way like to engage kids. But the truth is, like, this is not advice for children. Like, we should all have this Eat the Rainbow chart on our fridge, I swear. Because like, it's actually really, really good advice for any adult or any child of any age to try to eat as many different colors. So that is the Eat the Rainbow.
Yes. And that's such a fun way of like incorporating all the micronutrients and vitamins and stuff that you need rather than focusing on which vegetable or fruit is giving you the nutrients.
Yeah, because who
that's so
has time to
stressful.
learn that?
Yeah.
Like also.
And it just gets into the whole, like adding to the 100 other stressors that you have in life. And I think we were talking about how like stress can also affect gut health.
Yes.
So
Yes. That is really important. And actually that is so important to take a step away just from nutrition.
Yeah.
Because we do want this to be a holistic podcast, 100%. And we also do want there to be a focus on how different things in your environment will affect your gut health, because it isn't just the case of what you eat impacts your gut health. So stress is something that can negatively impact your gut. It's a little complicated because it's a feedback loop that goes both ways. So the more stress we get, the more certain hormones that are released can like impact our gut. Vice versa, like the beauty is when we nourish our gut with lots of a wide variety of foods and some of the other things we're going to talk about, we stay hydrated. Our gut can help us cope with stress better. That's the crazy thing that more recent research has found, that it can impact our moods. It impacts the release of serotonin. It literally can have an impact on our mental health. But in turn, our mental health will also have an impact on our eating habits, our sleep, and our stress. And that can also have an impact on our, on our gut microbiome and how thriving it is. So when we think about that, when we want to work on our gut health, we can also take a step back and think about like, how are we coping with stress at the moment? Like we all know that we cannot remove stress. Like it is impossible. It's also relative, right? Like if I might have a super stressful job and certain things are stressful, but even if I removed that job and I didn't work for a while, other things would seem stressful to me that maybe previously wouldn't, because stress is relative. Like our reality is relative. And our bodies don't know the difference between those things. Stress, when we experience it, often it's evolutionary. Like I have a psychology degree and I'm super interested in evolutionary psychology and how it impacts things. And basically the whole thing about stress, as I'm sure everyone's heard a million times, it's like our body doesn't know that the email that's made our heart sink isn't like a life-threatening thing, that it isn't like danger there. So one of the things which really helps with that is deep breathing. I mean, these are just like simple techniques. And I know I'm not covering anything particularly groundbreaking, but I think it's interesting to link everything together. So when you link it back to gut health, for example, when I said it can impact the gut health, the mechanism through which it does that is, well, obviously, if you have to run for your life or take action in some way, the hormones that are going to be released are going to be linked to survival. And lots of things within the digestive system are going to be repressed. So we need to deep breathe to remind our bodies, like, this is truly stressful. Like, it's not about being like, this doesn't matter, don't worry about it, I'm just going to gloss over it by just like scrolling on my phone. It's about acknowledging the stress. So I really teach with my clients something called the 90-second rule. So it's like a deep breathing technique, which also acknowledges more than the breath. It acknowledges an emotion that we're feeling inside. So if you get really stressed, say you get an email which makes your heart sink because it's a difficult issue, somebody's blaming you for something, and actually, I haven't done something, and that's why. And I mean, I experienced that so viscerally, right? I don't know whether you...
all the time.
So like viscerally means I'm experiencing it in my body as a physical emotion. Like when we say a feeling, like it is something we can feel. It isn't a thought. Like it literally, you feel it in your body as sensations, the same way you might if you like accidentally bang your hand.
It's like a physical, it's pain.
Physical sensation. And for me, and this is just me, like I experience it as like a deep, like, it's like a knot that comes in my chest. So the 90-second rule, some people experience it as like it's like cold water's been thrown.
Yeah.
Other people will experience it as like tension here and like in their back.
Yeah.
And different people will also experience different things, and I will also experience stress in different ways depending what it is. But the point is, can you just for 90 seconds, whilst also breathing and slowing down your breathing, can you actually tune into that sensation?
Right. So become more in tune with your emotions.
And acknowledge what it is.
Yeah.
Like name it for a start. Like, okay, this is like deep anxiety that I'm feeling right now, and I'm feeling like some kind of sense of dread. But also like, where am I literally feeling this in my body? Like, is it here on my back? Like, does it feel like I have a weight?
Yeah.
Or does it feel like a knot? Like sometimes emotions is like a knot in your chest.
Yeah,
that you
actually
need to
now that you like, I always
yeah.
feel it on my neck and shoulders.
That's very common. Yeah, that's so interesting. And do you feel it like heavy, or does it feel more like heat?
It feels heat.
Yeah.
But it also feels like like someone is stretching the back of it. And it's like throbbing.
Throbbing, yeah. That's so. Yeah, that's also the things to ask yourself. Like, is it throbbing like this, or is it like contracting?
Yeah.
And people will feel things like stones. Or people sometimes feel heat. Other people feel like cold.
Mm-hmm.
So different people will experience it. But the key thing is engaging with what that feels like, and then what the reason it's like called the 90-second rule is. Feel it, like stay with it. What you normally find is like a wave. Like it actually gets worse at first, but within 90 seconds, because you've acknowledged it and you have slowed down your breathing, you're basically telling yourself like, this is not imminent danger.
Right.
It's not denying the feelings, and it's not making them less real, but it is giving a message to your body like, we can go back to a regulated state, and this hasn't broken us.
Yeah.
And you may have to do the 90-second rule several times in a day if it's a particularly stressful day or it's a particularly stressful incident.
Yeah.
Or even you can do it now if you're recalling something which happened a few days ago that you did not deal with. But it is dealing with it.
Yeah, it's like taking that conscious step to actually make sure that you've done it.
Yeah, it's processing. Like when people say, I need to process my emotions, we mean stay with them.
Yeah.
Stay with them and acknowledge that they're there, because too often we will numb. Like we will numb because we will, we will scroll or we'll watch. Okay, so camera kind of almost died, and we also needed to like regroup and check that we were covering all the content. But now we're back. We're like filming our podcast.
Yeah. Okay, so I had a question that I was asking her right before the battery died. So I know that I need to incorporate fermented food, and I'm not sure about probiotics now that we were talking about it.
Yeah.
But the three main things that come up is like kombucha, buttermilk, and like what else is there?
Yeah, exactly. So often when people think about gut health, the first thing they start talking about is probiotics and kombucha.
Yeah.
And like there is a reason, even though this is very like not exactly a planned podcast episode, but it was always planned when we were filming the shorts. That I wouldn't start with the obvious like fermented foods, probiotics, and kombucha. I wanted it to come later. And that is because, as I was trying to explain, that like a good gut health, which in turn leads to better immunity, better like skin, better mood, better clarity, better hormonal balance, like so many different things. But it's not simple. And it is never, the problem is it's like you give people a hook, and not everybody's going to listen to the whole thing, although obviously we hope you will. And, giving people a hook, like you should supplement with a probiotic. People are like, brilliant. I saw an advert for a probiotic. I'm going to buy a probiotic and then everything will be sorted. Actually, the first point, more complex diets with a wide variety of things is needed before we start to think about fermented foods.
Oh, okay.
And I'll try and explain why, and also why I personally tend to recommend trying to get natural sources of fermented foods rather than taking probiotics. But I think first, probably the context needs to be set. Like, what is a fermented food and why would that? People know it's linked to your gut health, but like, why? So basically, fermented foods and beverages and probiotics contain microbes. So when we were talking about variety of plants, needing to eat all these different things, we're talking about eating a wide variety of food for yourself to feed your microbes.
Yeah.
It is also true that most vegetables and fruit, even if you wash it, will contain some microbes. So you are constantly ingesting microbes.
Yeah.
You also want to feed the microbes which already live in your gut with good things that they like to
Yeah.
eat. So the good bacteria, they like to eat fiber from plants.
Okay.
That makes them thrive. And those are we're obviously making it very simplistic, but the idea is those good bacteria which live in your gut, we call them good because, like we said, they might synthesize vitamins or proteins that your body can't. So we want to feed those bacteria with fiber.
Right.
Fermented foods is slightly different because the idea is we are ingesting those microbes. We're trying to get more in, inoculating our gut with those microbes so that they can take up residence and hang out and live there.
Yeah.
So if we said we had like a low variety of microbes in our gut, we want to ingest more varieties so that they might, when we eat them, just like take up residence.
Yeah.
So that is what we mean. So for example, kombucha, like well-made kombucha, contains some of the microbes, some of the good bacteria that we want to live there. So that's why we would drink it.
Yeah.
Probiotic is a capsule full. A good probiotic will literally have billions of microbes, and you ingest it in the hope that some will actually, when you eat it, want to live inside your gut. But you have to make it good for them.
Yeah.
So first you have to start eating the things they want to eat, get a few of them there, and then fermented foods will be so much more effective.
Okay.
So fermented foods and beverages include kombucha, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, buttermilk, curd, plant-based curd also when it's made properly using a fermented process. Pickles. Like in Indian culture, we have pickles that we might have alongside things. When they're not commercially made in bulk, but like they're made by your granny at home, like they will have been made using a fermentation process, which will mean that there is bacteria and these microbes, like it sounds so gross, like to say, it's basically a jar of bacteria-infested mangoes.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm all, you're in marketing. You know why we call it pickles and not. But the point is you literally giving yourself those things. So when we talk, there is a point about quality, which I'll come to. But basically the idea is that fermented foods are giving us the microbes, and the food that we eat when we focus on eating a wide variety is feeding them.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's referred to as prebiotic. Prebiotic means the things they need to eat. And probiotic means literally the microbes are contained within that food or drink. So if you love kombucha, can you have 5 kombuchas a day?
Please say yes.
Come on. What have we been talking about? What might I say at this point? Yes, if you love kombucha, that is great. Please focus on kombuchas, which talks about the fermentation process. And I would recommend finding brands you trust, using social media, using a bit of deep diving to make sure that they are not pasteurized.
Yeah.
Pasteurized, is a perfectly, it has its place in food preservation across the board. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying everything pasteurized is bad, but for kombucha, it's like pointless because you've heated up to kill the microbes so that it can't go bad. It defies the purpose.
Yeah.
So you want to look for quality and you want to trust the brand. And this is true of if you're buying, say, for example, kimchi. If you love kimchi, that is great. Should you eat a mountain of kimchi a day? No, because again, variety.
Yeah.
Variety is important. Different microbes that are in kimchi will be in different than the ones in kombucha, and they'll be different than the ones in the pickle in your fridge. So the idea is that variety piece is there within probiotics. The good thing about things like kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles is they are often fermented plants.
Yeah.
So as you eat the microbes, you are also feeding them with the things that you know they like to eat because they ate the cabbage.
Yeah.
So you're giving them more, like you're eating that cabbage and you're eating the microbes. And the chances are you will like improve your gut health in that way.
Yeah.
But it, again, is a very small piece of the puzzle. And so like you can take probiotics, like, and you can eat, if you're taking a probiotic, again, it would be pointless if you weren't eating a wide variety of plants. It will go through you. They can't live on nothing, just like we can't live on nothing.
Yeah.
So we need to be eating a healthy diet, but which is, in my definition, a variety of plants as the bulk of what we eat. So the probiotic can take up residence. The fermented foods can take up residence, but you can't heal your gut with just
that.
kimchi.
Yeah.
You cannot just be like, oh, I'll just eat loads of kimchi. That will be fine. Like, it will help. But the main thing is what you're doing 80% of the time. Not like you cannot literally eat enough kimchi to completely heal your gut. You would need to be eating that variety regularly and over time as you also incorporate fermented food. So like Copper and Cloves menu is a good example. Like we do put beautiful beetroot sauerkraut, which we make ourselves and we ferment in jars in the kitchen over time. And then we like use it as a garnish on other types of plant-based food made up of whole grains and different legumes and different vegetables.
Yeah.
Because it will give you a little bit, but we don't serve you like a mountain of
kimchi.
Just kimchi. The idea is to integrate it into your diet and into your life and recognize that none of this happens overnight. There isn't a pill that's going to change your gut health overnight. There isn't even a style of eating that's going to change your gut health overnight. It's like a long, slow game and it's boring maybe, but it's just, I hope we're giving some tips.
Yeah.
So basically if you love certain pickles, yes, have them alongside your food. Try kimchi, Thai sauerkraut. They are very, very cheap to make at home because they are basically cabbage and salt and other vegetables. And all of the other action happens by itself. They are much cheaper than expensive probiotics.
Yeah, for sure.
I am not against probiotics. And for some people, they do not have the time or the inclination to ferment anything. And maybe a probiotic may be recommended, like in your case, when you got your diagnosis, it may be recommended. My cat is going mad down there, which is what that movement is. And actually, that is a good segue into another thing we talked about, which is ingesting microbes in the form of having a pet is actually been proven, especially if you have a pet when you're growing up, dogs and cats, because you cuddle them and you kiss them like this, they actually do, you do end up ingesting microbes, which gives you, it actually is very, very good for your immune system. But because your immune system and your gut health are so interlinked, it can help basically increase the diversity of your microbes.
That is the coolest piece of information I've
given.
And while you're watching, I need to get a dog.
Get a dog. In a nutshell, get a dog. That's what we're saying. I think, when it comes to fermented foods, some are very expensive. Some are marketed as a fix-all. Don't fall for it. Continue to follow my very, very boring advice of variety of fermented foods in small quantities and over long periods of time. And eventually it will make a difference.
Yeah. Okay, so two things.
Yeah.
Firstly, I think it's very cool that there's more to kombucha and kimchi. And now, I have a wide variety of trying things out. And especially pickle, because I never thought about it as fermented, because I grew up eating it. It was part of comfort food.
Yeah.
Second, I have a follow-up question. So how do you like really consume these fermented foods? Like what time of the day?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be taken before the meal, after the meal?
Yeah.
Or does it not matter?
It doesn't matter so much specifically, but what I would say is, for example, the microbes in your kombucha are going to again, it's slightly oversimplifying it, but if you're just having kombucha, say, on its own, before you've eaten anything, and never having it alongside fiber-rich meals, and you haven't already switched to a more fibrous variety diet, it's unlikely to make much of a difference. Whereas if you're consuming it whilst you're also knowing that you're feeding your microbes with the foods they like to eat, then I think that, so basically alongside meals, integrate it is the, in a nutshell, integrate the fermented foods into the fiber-rich, diverse meals that we've been talking about, rather than seeing them as standalone supplements.
Got it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I think the point about our good bacteria, and this is oversimplifying it, but this is what helped me to understand it. And I am a health coach, but I am not a nutritionist, and I am not inclined to try to understand the deep science of nutrition. And most of us aren't, right? So we do want to simplify concepts in our minds.
Yeah.
So when we say good bacteria, like we've talked about, we mean bacteria that have byproducts of them being alive, which are positive for our health.
Mm-hmm.
For example, synthesizing and creating serotonin uptake in our bodies is the action of a microbe in our gut.
Yeah.
That is so amazing. Whereas the impact of a bad bacteria might be if it's comes in a certain time and amount, it causes us to vomit.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
The extreme.
A good bacteria might release the happy hormones in our body, and a bad bacteria might cause us to vomit.
Mm-hmm.
So what we also want to look at is, but in a less extreme case, it might cause us to feel lethargic, say.
Yeah.
So feeling sluggish and lethargic isn't something that we want to aspire to, most of us. It's not a good feeling. So what we need to be aware of is, what do the bacteria that give us good things like to eat? They tend to want to eat the fiber, everything we've just been talking about. And bacteria which tend to have negative side effects, they are feeding off sugar. So when we say sugar is bad for us, by what mechanism is it bad for us? One of the ways it's bad for us, including giving the blood sugar spike and how that can lead to insulin resistance, is also that it feeds bacteria that may, in turn, by just being alive and getting more and more, because they eat that sugar, having more and more of this, the byproducts of them being there, is causing us to feel more lethargy.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings us to the final piece of advice. And there is a reason why it's last. And that kind of is around cutting out hyper-processed or hyper-sugary foods that might be feeding into an overgrowth of bad bacteria which don't give you good health benefits. May not be as extreme as vomiting, but it may be something which is actually quite chronic within you. And I'm very, very careful. We have talked about this before, and it's something that I'm really happy, I'm introducing in the first episode. I hope that so far everybody has realized that everything we've talked about have been about adding stuff in.
Yeah.
I haven't once talked about reducing calories, cutting out an entire food group. I try to keep nutrition advice into actionable, positive things rather than about what we need to cut out.
Yeah.
So basically, cutting out, for example, high amounts of sugary processed foods can have a major impact on our gut.
Mm-hmm.
Having less processed sugar in our diet can help to balance, like quickly rebalance the gut microbiome so that more good bacteria thrive and more bad bacteria start to die out.
Yeah.
Then as we do all the other things we've talked about, we can really, really build it up into like a good community. Yeah. The reason I'm so cautious about, I just don't think it's very helpful to be like, oh, by the way, like all you need to do is just like cut out chocolate bars and the fast food that you struggle to not eat every day. Because often our relationships with processed food are very complicated.
Yeah. Very emotional.
They may be emotional. They may be driven by convenience or habits.
Yeah.
They tend to be more compelling to eat. They tend to be convenience foods. It's not very helpful to be like, yeah, it's really simple, guys. You just don't eat any processed food and your gut microbiome will thrive. Because cutting out processed foods, can be very, very difficult for many, many reasons. And also going on diets where you try to only eat healthy, clean food and not eat any processed food can really mess with your mental health and make you experience stress, which in turn we know doesn't help our health. So I guess I'm like exercising a lot of caution in the sense that, look, it would be a lie to say that like, you know, and there's also been research showing that like artificial sweeteners and preservatives really mess with our microbiome.
Right.
I'm not going to pretend to like be able to go into the exact details of why and which chemicals interact with which things, but basically the microbiome, like, it's not natural, and they get confused about whether it's sugar or not, and it can lead to an overgrowth of bad bacteria, etc. Like there are lots of different mechanisms which I don't pretend to understand exactly. But I do think it's worth noting that like artificial preservatives and things can really mess with our gut health.
Yeah.
It's not saying that doesn't happen, but it's just about recognizing. I don't know. I'm like, keep giving this warning, like, oh my God, I don't want to say it because I really do appreciate how unhelpful content is where it tells you to do something as if that was an easy thing to do.
Yeah. And it's not always sustainable also.
Yeah.
Like until and unless you're able to incorporate those changes into your everyday lives.
Yeah.
Like similarly, like we were talking about diets and stuff as well. Like you can do it for a month or 2 months. And then after that, you're like, get back into the emotional eating or like eating whatever's available. And you're back to square one.
And because most diets are completely toxic in terms of their messaging, in terms of, you know, making you feel like, oh, I just need to follow this exact calorie thing. And if I don't, it's my fault and I failed to achieve my diet. Like I never want to fall into that trap of like how to give advice.
Yeah.
And basically, that is why I kind of wanted to acknowledge the impact it can have on our gut health, but ultimately try to direct people more towards thinking about actions they can take, which are adding things in and kind of the concept that like the more good things we add in, the more we train our bacteria to want to eat those things. And actually you can sort of reduce things like cravings, because sometimes, again, we describe sugar cravings as if it's fat. Like, but what does it mean? Like, if you say like, I'm just craving sugar, like sometimes, especially when we're craving sugar for no apparent reason, like not because we're super tired or burnt out, it often is because our gut is craving sugar. Yeah. And when I say our gut is craving sugar, those specific bacteria, which we normally feed with sugar, are being like, I need more sugar.
Yeah.
But actually, we want them to naturally die out, like the bad bacteria.
Right.
So it's not to say that sugar isn't impacting us and processed foods aren't impacting our gut, but let's try to like focus on nourishing our gut first, increasing the quantities and diversity of the microbes that are in there, and then like, you know, getting to the point where we might feel in a stronger position to like, you know, maybe replace some certain things which we tend to eat with something a bit more nourishing and whole, like switching to something which is more whole grain, but also recognizing that like processed food is always going to be a part of our modern lifestyle. And it's about finding a way that it's like it can be enjoyable.
Yeah. And I think like being someone outside this wellness space, but also being someone who wants to be healthier,
Yeah.
like make those conscious decisions. I think it's really cool to actually think about the fact that you have a community of bacteria
Yeah.
living inside you. And the other day you said something really cool, and I was like, okay, I need to take off my laptop. And I would just want you to share this with the world because it was interesting to know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not an exact science, but the thriving community of microbes in your gut, it's like when we are talking about the numbers, we are not talking about a few thousand, like we are talking about like billions and billions, like more microbes in your body in different communities, but particularly in your gut, than there are grains of sand on the beach. Like it is literally so many. There is so much genetic material inside of us that is not our own. And this is really an emerging area of research, which I'm also always learning about. I do like follow a lot of different information channels about like gut health research, and it's not just gut health, it's microbes in general that live on our skin and that live in different places all over our bodies. And it sounds so gross, but like actually these things, like the idea that the health of the microbes that are living in our bodies doesn't impact our health and isn't basically fundamental to any positive health outcome that we might be looking for, whether it's like, I want to get sick less often, or I want to, I want to feel more energetic or happy, like more positive generally. Like these are things that are intrinsically connected to the microbes which live in our body, because there are so many of them that it would be crazy, and they are living on us and off us. You know what I mean? Like the things we eat, they live on our skin, they live in like our hair and our eyes. Like it's so gross. Because we're so used to hearing the word bacteria and thinking like it's a germ and we need to wash our hands, but we don't. And
hello,
here is Lily. And actually, Lily is another reason why we can be, she's licking my foot, why we can also talk about how pets can feed into our gut microbiome, because they also are absolutely covered in microbes and bacteria. And the idea that that wouldn't also impact our own is also, when you think about it, mad, because they probably have like a whole, island's worth of beaches of microbes
and
on there.
that's like another to my 1,000 item list on why I should have a dog right now.
We're going to get
hopefully
you a dog.
soon, please.
The outcome of this podcast is to get you a dog. So I think that we should close on that note. I hope that there have been some like actionable things, like maybe people will know more about what we mean when we say gut health.
Yeah, I definitely know more now.
Good.
So thank you.
No, I'm so glad. And I think like focusing on adding things in is really where I want to end it, because I already like feel like I know that I want the next episode to be about not dieting, about rejecting diet culture and what we call food freedom, like letting go of the idea that we need to diet, that we need to focus on thinness as a marker for health, like all of these things. It's like a whole other episode. Clearly, it's not something we're going to have time to talk about now.
We already have a topic for the next one. Oh, wow. Efficient.
I'm so excited about talking about that one, because it's my other like deep passion. So I kind of want to end on actionable tips, which are very linked to this, which are all about like adding things in and variety. So one of them is like focusing on adding in things to anything. So for example, like one really nice tip is keep a jar of mixed seeds, pumpkin, sunflower, flax, any seeds, watermelon seeds, muskmelon seeds. Keep a jar of them. Hemp seeds are a really good source of fiber, as well as other different types of nutrients. And add them on to things, like whether you're having a salad or like something on toast, or you've made like a sabzi rice, like, or you have some curry, like sprinkle it on top. That's giving you more fiber and it's feeding your microbes and it's improving your gut health. And you're adding something in. You're adding nutrition in.
And the crunch would be so good.
And the crunch and the texture is what makes us feel satisfied when we eat. And that is also something I teach in my salad workshop, which I think could probably be a whole other podcast
I'm excited
episode.
to be a part of that.
7 steps to a really great salad.
Yeah.
And that is definitely one of the tips, is like get some crunch in there, which also adds in nutrients.
Yeah.
I think also when we think about variety, like one other tip that I have is like, again, people often ask me like, you know, when I'm trying to be more healthy and I'm trying to go plant-based, like, do I have to go raw? And I'm like, no. Like, firstly, a lot of, you know, vegetables obviously should not be consumed raw. They need to be cooked to make them digestible for our microbes. But also, like, things that can, let's say cabbage, for an example, it can be fermented.
Yeah.
It can be shaved raw, cut thinly and served in a salad. Equally, it can be cooked in a sabzi with coconut and spices. And is one better than the other? Absolutely not. Like, there are a wide, like different types of fiber will become available to you when you eat food which can be eaten, cooked or raw in different ways.
Yeah.
So genuinely, there is an advantage to eating things not just with a wide variety of color and type, but also cooking style. Like sprout some of the dal and cook others.
Yeah.
And it's not that sprouts are healthier. Like in some ways they're super, super healthy, but in other ways there's certain nutritional properties that a cooked dal will give you that sprouts don't.
So it's all about the balance.
It's all about the variety and the balance.
Yeah.
Like certain microbes will like love the cooked dal. Others will be just like loving the sprouts. Like trying to think of them, like you said, like you never thought of it as like a community. And like the more we can kind of like make them have little personalities, like some of them love fruits and other ones just love vegetables. And so I think we need to wrap up because Lily needs to go for her walk and it's getting dark. But this has been so fun to do a long form podcast, which is basically, Lily is chasing the cat. It has basically been my dream. And I want to thank you for making it happen, because even though we didn't set out today to film a long podcast, we actually set out to create 12 reels. I have had a lot more fun having this conversation with you and like talking about gut health than I would have if we actually stuck to the 12 reel idea, because that was like giving me a lot of stress.
No, and like, first of all, I can't believe we made this happen.
I know.
It's like in a matter of like 5 minutes, I was like, get here, start talking, we need to start shooting right now.
This has to be a podcast.
And I was not prepared to be behind the camera at all. And
you're a natural.
You were inspiring. You were very confident. And she's like, you got this. And I was like, okay, fine, I will come.
You are a natural. It was basically because we had such a nice, deep conversation about this.
Like, I feel like being outside of this industry, I feel like no book or like a blog or just like researching about it for hours would have taught me this kind of information. And you made it fun while you were at it. So thank you for that. Wow. He's hungry.
Lily and Chana are like having a full-on play session, and it seems like they are fighting, but they are not. So I don't know how much that's affecting the audio, but I think it's fine. And yes, we did name our cat Chana, basically. Variety, eating whole grains.
A reminder every day.
And I think it would be really nice if you come back on the podcast another time, then we can tap into your expertise, which is about like how authentic marketing will help you to grow like your wellness business. Because I am in the wellness industry, and I do know a lot of other business owners that are interested in wellness, interested in growing their business, and we need your help because you are so good at like helping me create content strategies and everything. So I think that is a whole other podcast for the future.
Very excited for that. We planned a lot of things this episode, but thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the first ever episode of the podcast.
Thank you for for joining us on the Nourish podcast today. I hope you found this episode insightful and inspiring. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do consider following or subscribing on your preferred platform where you listen to your podcast so that you can keep up to date with future episodes. Remember, nourishment goes beyond just what we eat. It encompasses everything from connection, community, movement, meditation, and laughter. So let's continue this journey of nourishing ourselves together. Until next time, stay nourished and be well.